I am always looking for new strategies to backtest, and I came across this one a while ago in a book called Short-Term Strategies That Work. In that book, the strategy is described in detail, and it's then backtested on the S&P 500 index, and it shows really good results. The book, however, was published in 2010, so in this video, I'm going to test the strategy for myself and see if it still holds up all these years later. And then I'll try to make some optimizations to see if I can improve it further. But first, let's begin by taking a look at the strategy setup and the rules. It only uses 3 indicators: a fast 5-day moving average, this blue line here, a slow 200-day moving average, this yellow line here, and the RSI indicator, which is this section down here. By default, when you put an RSI indicator onto a chart, the period is normally set to 14. However, in this RSI2 strategy, the period is changed to 2, and that's very specific to this method. The indicator then oscillates between a low value of 0 and a high value of 100. The idea is that when the value is really low, it indicates a potential buying opportunity. In this strategy, the thresholds are set as 5 and 95. So an RSI value that dips below 5 is considered a buying opportunity. There are only a few rules to the strategy. Firstly, the price must close above the 200-day moving average, this yellow line here. Secondly, the RSI needs to go below a value of 5. You then buy on the close of that day and exit when the price closes above the 5-day moving average. So let's take a look at a few examples that I've marked up here of potential trades. This one here, the first condition is that the price is above the 200-day moving average, so that's good. The second condition is that the RSI goes and closes below 5, and that happens here, which is marked with this little green section at the bottom. So the value is 1.16, that's well below 5. So at this point we have a buy signal, and we buy at the close of that candle, right down the bottom here. I then hold the trade until it closes above the 5-day moving average, which happens here. So we buy at the bottom here, and we close at the top here, giving a nice profitable trade. Now let's look at another example. Again, the price is, although it's dipping below the 200-day moving average at a few points, it closes above it each time. Then we wait for the RSI to go below 5, which happens on this candle here. So we buy at the bottom of this candle, and then we hold until we close above the 5-day moving average, this blue line, which happens the next day. So we sell on the close up here. Another decent profitable strategy. Buy down here, sell up here. This one, pretty much the same thing again. It's above the 200-day. The RSI dips below 5 here, so we buy at the close, and then we sell when the next day closes above the 5-day moving average. So there's another good profitable trade here. Now let's look at one that didn't quite work out. The price is above the 200-day moving average, and we dip below 5 on the RSI on this candle. So this is where we would buy, just at the close here. But then the next day continues downwards. We have to wait until the price closes above the 5-day moving average, which only happens here. So we exit at the close of this candle. We entered here and we exit here. So there's not really any profit here, and potentially this one is a loss. But the best way to know for sure if this performs well over a long period of time is to run a backtest. But before I do that, I think it's important to actually understand the indicators that we're using. Moving average indicators don't need too much explanation. It just takes the average of the previous X days prices. So a 5-day moving average takes the 5 days before and averages them out. A 200-day does the same thing, but with the previous 200 days. The RSI is a little bit more complicated than that. It stands for Relative Strength Indicator, and that's effectively what it's trying to show, the relative strength of the market. It was developed by J. Wells Wilder in 1978, so it's an indicator that has been around for a long time, and it's one of the most common indicators. The way it measures the relative strength is by comparing the upward moves with the downward moves. And you can see that here as it kind of follows the chart. So whenever we have strong green candles, the RSI moves up. Whenever there's a red candle, like here and here, the RSI dips back down. In calculating the RSI, we look at the direction of the candle as well as the size of that candle. I then take an average of the last few days, depending on the RSI period. So that's what this period here means. Typical 14-day RSI averages out the previous 14 days worth of price. The RSI2 only takes the last 2 days, so it's much more responsive to daily movements. The RSI is then calculated with this formula here. Thankfully, charting packages do all of the calculation for you, but it's important to understand what an indicator does and how it works before you use it in your trading. The way the indicator is typically used is that you look for extreme values. For example, in this strategy, the RSI needs to go below 5 to give a trading signal. So let's take a look at the backtest for this strategy. I've put this together myself in Python. I'm not going to go too deep into the code, but just to give a quick overview, I firstly import all the libraries that I'm going to use. I define my date range, so I'm going to test from the 1st of January 1990 to the 17th of September this year. I will test on the S&P 500 using the RSI system. I'll start with a balance of 10,000 just to give some kind of context. I then have my slow and fast moving averages with a 200-day and a 5-day period. The RSI period is set to 2 and the RSI threshold is set to 5. So I'm going to look for values below 5 to give me my buying opportunities. The rest of the code after that just works out my signals, generates the trades, and then finally I have my equity chart down here. So this is the result of trading that strategy from 1990 until the present day. The book was published in 2010, which is around about here. It looks like the strategy has continued to perform pretty well ever since then. Overall, this is a pretty good looking equity chart. Not too many peaks and troughs, and a pretty steady line. Now let's take a look at a few metrics that I extracted from it. The annualized return is 2.9%, which isn't really that great when you consider what you can get from just a buy and hold in the S&P 500, but the time in the market is very low. So this is a very selective strategy and it doesn't take many trades, but the trades that it does take are quite high quality with a good probability. So when I take my returns and divide it by the time in the market, my return by exposure is actually really good. The drawdown also isn't too bad. The maximum is just about 12%. I also track the running drawdown. This is the maximum drawdown while a trade is open. Overall, there were 235 trade signals, but only 146 trades. So not a huge amount of trades considering the time period that I just looked at. The win rate though is very impressive. 81.5% of the trades that were taken were winners. And the average reward to risk also isn't too bad considering that high win rate. So while this strategy may not necessarily make enough return on its own, I think it would work really well in a basket of strategies where every now and again it would generate a really good trade signal. There is one challenge to the strategy rules though, which is that everything happens on the close. So it says that you enter on the close of the market if RSI is below 5. However, you don't know what the RSI is going to be until the market is closed, at which point it's too late to enter. So the first tweak that I'm making to the strategy is that I will get my signals on the close, but then I will enter on the open of the next day. This will make sure that the signals are finalized before I enter the trade. So I made that tweak to my code, and the results are still more or less the same as before. You will notice now there aren't any more gaps. In my previous backtest, there were overnight gaps because we were buying on the close with the potential gap the next day. But now I'm buying on the open, so there are no more overnight gaps to worry about. I then started thinking a bit more about the RSI periods. So the default tends to be a 14-day RSI. This strategy uses a 2-day RSI. So I'm going to change this back to a 14 period just to see the difference in the RSI down here. And you notice right away, the line is much steadier and it doesn't go anywhere near those extremes of 5 and 95. The reason for that is it now has a lot more data to take into account in its average. So it's generally going to sit more or less around the middle. And that is a feature of RSI. The higher the period, the smoother the line is going to be, and the more likely it is to sit closer to the midpoint. So as the RSI period increases, these thresholds also have to increase. So that got me thinking about comparing different RSI periods and different thresholds. I set up a separate backtest specifically for this, where I generated a whole bunch of RSI periods from 2 up to 20 and a bunch of RSI thresholds from 5 up to 40. And I then ran a backtest on all of those parameters. To visualize the results, I used these heat maps. This first heat map gives me the annual returns based on the different RSI periods and the different thresholds. For our baseline, the RSI2 strategy is up here. So the period is 2 and the threshold is 5. That gives me an annual return of 2.8, which is what I just got from my previous backtest. You notice then, as the threshold increases, so does the annual return, up to a certain point of around 5%, which would suggest that simply increasing that cutoff threshold means that I'm going to get better returns. But what's actually happening here is that yes, the annual returns do increase, but that's happening at the cost of higher exposure. So the strategy is in the market more, therefore it can make more money. But the quality of the trades may not stay consistent, and we will see that in the next couple of charts. But what I found interesting here is that there's a zone where there are no values down in this bottom left corner. And that's simply because there are not enough trades, or maybe no trade at all in the entire test period. This goes hand in hand with what I just showed, that as the RSI period increases, the thresholds also have to increase because the RSI then sticks more or less to the middle. The results from this heat map are pretty interesting. So let's have a look at a couple more. The next one is where I'm plotting return by exposure. So this is the annual return divided by the time in the market. And again, it seems to follow the same pattern that in the bottom left section, actually more than half of the chart probably, there aren't enough trades to give any meaningful values. But notice now that with the RSI2 strategy, as the thresholds increase, the return by exposure is actually going down. So when you take this heat map and the previous heat map together, what it's showing is that while the returns did increase with the higher thresholds, it happened at the cost of more and more time in the market. The last chart that I've got combines my returns, exposure, and the drawdown. So these returns are adjusted for risk. The higher the number, the better the strategy. And straight away, it looks like the RSI2 doesn't actually perform as well as a few of the others. For example, the best one seems to be RSI 16 with thresholds of 37.5. However, at this point, I'm getting into overfitting. These results are just the best from the data sample that I've tested on. So they're optimized. And you can actually see that very clearly here because as soon as you change the parameters slightly, so for example, if we take this RSI 12 and a 35 threshold, it performs really well. But if I increase the threshold to 37.5, it completely drops off a cliff. So that means that these results here aren't very robust and they can be disregarded. By contrast, the RSI2 stays quite steady, although it does start to decrease slowly as we increase the thresholds, it doesn't completely drop off. Interestingly, RSI 4 with periods of 15 and above also seems to give quite good returns. So this is another variation that could be considered. But the differences are very slight, so I'm going to continue with the RSI2 strategy. What these tests do show is that that strategy does seem to be quite robust. So now I'm going to modify some of the rules and see what differences they make. The first thing that I want to test is adding some kind of stop loss, because right now there is no stop loss to this strategy. The exit condition is based on the price closing above the 5-day moving average. So I'm going to test out a stop that exits if the price closes below the 200-day moving average. To do that, I simply modify my exit conditions to add the second parameter. So if the price closes below the slow moving average, which is the 200 days, then I exit that trade. I run the code and these are the updated results. If I compare it side by side with the standard strategy, you can see that adding the stop loss actually made it worse in pretty much every metric. The returns were lower, the drawdown was worse, the win rate was lower, and the average reward to the risk was also worse. So it seems that adding the stop loss actually made the strategy worse by prematurely exiting trades that could have gone on to become winners. So the stop loss didn't work very well. Something else that I could try is using a time-based exit. So rather than waiting for the price to close above the 5-day moving average, I could just wait a certain number of days and then exit the market on that day. So I updated my code again, and this time I define a list of hold durations between 0 days and 20 days. 0 days meaning that I buy on the open today and then I exit on the close of the same day. So I hold overnight for 0 days. To analyze the results of this test, I plotted out a number of different line graphs. Here, the blue line is the annual return. And you can see that as the number of hold days increases from 0 up to 20, the annual return doesn't actually change that much. It's very steady. However, the return by exposure, which is the yellow line, starts off really high and then it just steadily drops off, which you would expect because if the return is staying the same, but the number of days that you're holding a trade increases, then the return by exposure is only going to get worse because it's the return divided by the time in the market. So this shows that generally holding on to the trade doesn't seem to be that great, but the first few days are where a potential profit can be made. The second chart is the max drawdown. And again, this kind of curves down the way, with the drawdown getting worse and worse the longer the strategy holds on, which also makes sense because it could buy at a wrong time, price then starts to decline, but the trade just holds on to it, and the longer you hold it, the worse the drawdown gets. So this again suggests that holding on to these trades for a long time isn't a good idea. And then the last graph shows all of those metrics combined. This is the return by exposure divided by the drawdown. It basically summarizes what the previous two graphs showed. The higher the value, the better the strategy. And it starts off pretty high at the beginning and then drops off pretty badly the longer the trade is held. The best results actually seem to be achieved by not holding the trade at all and just basically getting the signal, buying on the open, and then exiting on the close at the end of that day. To test this out, I can set my duration just to 0 days and see what the results come out to. This is the equity curve. It looks quite similar to the standard RSI2 strategy test from before, although maybe not quite as smooth and linear. But let's look at the metrics and compare them to the RSI2 standard strategy. So here you can see there are some things that have gone better and some things that have gone worse. The annual return is definitely worse. It's about half. But then so is the time in the market, because the trade is done within a single day. That means that return by exposure and return over drawdown are actually a little bit better than the standard RSI strategy. The win rate does decrease, but the average reward to risk increases. So it seems quite difficult to compare the two. They both have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think it really comes down to personal preference. I think the one main advantage that this strategy has over the normal RSI strategy is that because the trades are over and done with in a single day, there's limited downside risk and less chance of holding on to a losing trade as the market continues going further and further down. This never seemed to happen in my backtest of the standard RSI strategy, but the fact that there's no stop loss there means that it is possible for one of these events to happen and take a really big loss. Another thing I wanted to check is if I reverse the strategy and used it for short entries instead. So now I would be looking for the RSI to be above 95 and look for short entries. So I basically flip all of the rules around and retest it again. And this is the result. The equity curve doesn't look great, but it does come out profitable after all those years. The metrics also aren't amazing, but what this does show that even though the S&P 500 has been going up for all those years, shorting against the market is still profitable with this strategy, albeit very slightly. The reason this is important is because it tends to be easier to have a profitable long-only strategy when you're testing in a bull market like the S&P. So the fact that this strategy is profitable both long and short just shows how robust the underlying method is. Finally, no backtest will be complete without comparing the strategy to a buy and hold. And that's what I'm doing here. So if I take a look at the equity curve, the blue line shows buy and hold on the S&P 500 and the yellow line shows the RSI strategy. This looks like the strategy is terrible and massively underperforms. And from the equity curve alone, that would be a fair conclusion. But we need to look at the metrics of the two strategies and compare them in more detail. The annual return for this strategy is quite low compared to buy and hold, but like I mentioned previously, the strategy only takes a few trades. So the time in the market is also much less than buy and hold, which is in the market the whole time. So when you adjust the return by exposure, suddenly the return of this strategy is not as bad as it first looked compared to buy and hold. Also, the drawdown is greatly improved. So this strategy protects capital much better. And when you take those things and combine them into one by taking the return, the exposure, and the drawdown, the RSI comes out well ahead of buy and hold. It also has a much higher win rate, although the risk for return isn't quite as good. So this isn't a strategy that's designed to trade on its own in one single market, because it just doesn't take enough trades to generate a meaningful return. But if it's used in conjunction with other strategies and traded across different markets, then that's when this really comes into its own. Considering it's such a common indicator, it's really interesting to see an RSI strategy that performs well, but I'm sure there are many others. Let me know in the comments what your experience has been with the RSI indicator, and if there are any strategies that you use it in. I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you in the next one.